It's been snowmageddon around here this winter. I can't remember the last one like it. So we were glad to break up the monotony with a trip to the bike show to see some of the new models coming to Canada. And as we walked in, the Harley-Davidson display was the first one in front of the door. And two new models caught my eye, the much upgraded Lowrider ST, ST standing for Sport Touring, and the new Pan America ST, ST standing for Sport Touring. Now, over the last few years, Harley-Davidson has had several ST branded models, one of which, the CVO Road Glide ST, I had a chance to test last summer. Check out that review in the top right corner. But as a guy who has ridden hundreds of motorcycles over the last 26 years, I can say with a fair bit of certainty that functionally, the Pan America ST is the first and only sport touring motorcycle that Harley-Davidson has produced, if you don't count Buell. So why even call these other models STs, and why might the Lowrider ST outsell the Pan America ST despite being functionally inferior? I've been told more than once in the comment sections of my videos that when it comes to Harleys, I just don't get it. But as a former Harley owner, and possibly a future one, I beg to differ. I get it, and in this video I'll try to explain it. So stay tuned, and as always, if you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. My introduction to motorcycles happened in the late 70s or early 80s behind the Iron Curtain in Poland, which at the time was a communist country. My grandfather had an old bike in a barn that he had bought in the 60s and which wasn't much used anymore. I believe it was a WFM M06 and it had an air-cooled single-cylinder 125cc motor which might have produced all of 5 or 6 horsepower. It was black, fully metal, and the engine was on display, making maintenance and service easy. I think I was 8, this must have been 1983, when my dad put me on that thing, popped it in first gear, and sent me riding in a potato field as he ran beside me. It was the first motorcycle I ever rode, and I wouldn't ride another one for 15 years. Sometime later that same year, I was hanging out in my town when I came across 2 spaceships, or so it seemed, parked in my neighborhood. Each one had 2 wheels, was covered up by a plastic fairing, and had the word Honda stamped on the side. I couldn't tell you which models they were, but what stuck out to me was that I could tell by looking at the exhausts that these wonder machines had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 cylinders each. And then I decided to do what every kid did back then to check the true worth of a vehicle. I looked at the speedometer to see where it topped out. 200 kilometers per hour, the magic number that separated vehicles from the communist bloc and vehicles which were not. I concluded that a couple of intrepid adventurers, perhaps from West Germany, had decided to brave the Iron Curtain to see how the other half lived. I still don't know how they got across in 1983, the height of the Cold War, but maybe they had connections. After I moved to Canada in 1984, I saw many multi-cylinder bikes, but motorcycles weren't on my radar until I went to university and met a guy who had a late 80s Harley-Davidson FXR Super Glide. That bike was blue and had all the traditional touches of the classic bikes I had grown up with. You could see the engine, transmission, and all of the other components. It was made of metal and it was loud. It also dwarfed those old Polish bikes with its 1340cc Evo Big Twin and rolled down a road as a locomotive might if it had rubber tires. That bike came to symbolize to me what a motorcycle should be, and the modern itineration of it is now the 117 cubic inch Lowrider S. But here's the thing, both the Super Glide and the Lowrider in their respective time periods were and are functionally inferior to more modern motorcycles that have more power, less weight, and superior handling and probably comfort too. That is where the Lowrider ST and Pan America ST stand today. The Pan America is over 100 pounds lighter, it has 149 horsepower versus the Lowrider's newly updated high-output 114 horsepower motor, and has 17-inch sport bike-sized wheels for better handling and superior acceleration. To go with the lighter wheels, the Pan Am also gives you more lean angle and a far superior suspension. The Lowrider ST has more torque, 128 pound-feet to the Pan Am's 94, but that is just about the only performance advantage it has. Some could argue that the Lowrider is more comfy, and this is a very subjective rider-dependent measurement. It does have a lower seat which makes it accessible to riders who may be too short for the Pan Am ST, Personally, however, I prefer the Pan Am's adventure bike riding position to the cruiser one on the Lowrider because having your feet underneath you gives you the option of lifting yourself off the saddle to give your butt a rest. Additionally, to me at least, the flat and wide Pan America seat is more comfortable. And yet, I have a feeling that more Lowrider STs will be sold than Pan America STs, despite the fact that the Lowrider is by all objective measures an inferior bike that costs more than the Pan America, even if you outfit the Pan Am with saddlebags. Certainly there's a subset of motorcyclists who would never even consider the Pan America but would be perfectly happy with a Lowrider ST. And this is where objective measures go out the window and subjective ones come in. There are just some things about the big Harleys that cannot be accounted for on a spec sheet. Let's face it, the number one is the look. Having the beautiful engine on display with those cooling fins and push rods for everyone to see is attractive to guys like me who have grown up with the old school motorcycles of yesteryear. And it's not just Harleys, but Indians, Triumphs, and Royal Enfields that make our hearts beat faster. Where modern adventure bikes like the Pan America and R1300 GS are function over form, modern classic motorcycles are as much designed to be admired from afar as ridden. They are mechanical works of art with every angle and proportion carefully sculpted for maximum effect. The second advantage of the Harley Big Twin over the Harley Revolution Max is sound. And the Pan America, being a 60-degree V-twin, has that aggressive bark similar to KTM's bikes, and that is definitely a sound that will grab attention. However, the potato rumble of a 45-degree Milwaukee 8, especially with an aftermarket exhaust, is unmistakable. So much so that Harley-Davidson once tried to patent the sound. Many riders of modern bikes don't get it, but as a former owner of a Harley with a Stage 1 and Screaming Eagle slip-ons, I do.
Oh, that's nice and deep, eh?
Finally, there's the feel of the motorcycle, the final puzzle of what makes big twin cruisers so attractive. Many Harley riders who have spent thousands of dollars pimping their bikes with Stage 4 big bore kits, cams, high-flow air filters, and free-flowing exhausts for closed-circuit use only, wink wink nudge nudge, might be shocked to see a stock Pan America blow by them as if they were standing still. But facts are facts. And the fact is that a partially air-cooled giant V-twin with push rods has too many inherent disadvantages to compete with a truly modern motor like the Rev Max. Designers of the Milwaukee 8 had to start with an almost 2000cc 45-degree air-cooled V-twin as the base and then try to make it perform. Whereas if you were working on the Rev Max, liquid cooling and overhead cams were a given, no compromises needed. That's why the Rev Max smokes the Milwaukee 8. And yet, there's something about riding that giant twin that no modern motor can copy. I've reviewed both the Street Glide and the Goldwing on my channel, and even though the Goldwing is more powerful on paper, that's not how it feels from the saddle. The acceleration and roll-on of the Street Glide feels superior because its big V-twin makes maximum torque at lower revs, right where you use it on the street. The Pan America is in the same boat. Its 149 horsepower come at 8,750 RPM where few riders will venture on the street, while the 117 Milwaukee 8 high output is producing its 128 pound-feet of torque where most big twin jockeys live, at 4,000 RPM. Coming off the bottom of the rev range on a big twin feels like the hand of God is pushing you forward. It's not the frantic high-revving acceleration of the modern motorcycle, but the locomotive-like building of momentum which feels from the saddle like an irresistible force. No flat 6, inline 4, or high-revving 1250cc V-twin can match that feeling. And so when Harley riders say you don't get it, and fans of more modern motorcycles scoff at them for riding overweight, underpowered farm machinery, they are talking past each other. The two groups are after two different things. One chases ultimate performance enabled by the latest tech, and the other seeks a look, sound, and feel that reminds them of a simpler time. Having one foot in each camp, I get both sides. If it was my money and I had to choose between the STs, it would be the Lowrider for me, but that's because I already own a couple of fairly modern options. If I was only going to own one motorcycle, however, I'd go for the reasonably priced plastic bike that has the widest range of uses. I get the allure of all-out performance, but because of my own past, I also get why looks, sound, and feel matter. Both views are legitimate as different things appeal to different riders. And to be fair, today's traditional Harleys are incredibly comfortable in addition to looking, sounding, and feeling cool. and 114 horsepower is nothing to sneeze at. They are expensive though. I guess that companies like Triumph and now Harley-Davidson give riders both options if they want. However, I do think the Lowrider ST will outsell the Pan America ST for one main reason. Many companies produce Pan America type sport tours, while the Lowrider maybe has some competition from Indian, but that's it. So just based on that, I think it will sell more even if there are fewer riders looking for that type of bike. The Pan Am has to beat out a lot of solid bikes to make a sale. So one of these bikes is a legit sport tourer, competing with the Tracer 9, NT 1100 and Ducati Multistrada, and the other is a nice muscle cruiser with bags. Both are good bikes and both will make different riders happy. So ride what you ride, be proud of it, and don't let anybody tell you that it's not the right way to enjoy motorcycling. The right bike is the one that turns your crank. But I'm curious, which ST is more your style of motorcycle? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Ride safe, check out some of these other videos which may be of interest to you, and may the spokes be with you.